watching with horror, but also admiration. We have breaking news this morning. Ukraine has agreed to talks with Russia as Russian forces continue their assault on Ukraine's largest cities. The talks could come as soon as today, and they will be held at the Belarusian border. That's according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's office. The news of talks comes as Russians advanced into Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, where street fighting broke out as Ukrainian forces tried to hold back the invasion. In Ukraine's largest city, the capital, Kyiv, the mayor said this morning there was no Russian presence in the city. After massive explosions overnight near Kyiv, citizens there remain under curfew, and Ukraine says it intercepted a cruise missile from Belarus headed toward the capital. CNN is reporting that according to two senior U.S. officials, Russians have encountered, quote, stiffer than expected resistance from the Ukrainians. Late Saturday, the United States and Europe announced far-reaching new financial punishments against Russia designed to cripple the Russian economy, removing several Russian banks from the global financial system known as SWIFT. U.S. and European officials also committed to sanctioning the Russian central bank. That's according to people familiar with the move. And that move would be without precedent for an economy of Russia's size. We are starting to get a sense of the human cost of this war. According to the UN, there have been at least 240 civilian casualties, including at least 64 deaths since Russia launched its attack, and there are now 368,000 Ukrainian refugees. I want to go straight to the ground in Ukraine and begin with CNN Chief International Correspondent Clarissa Warr, who is live in Kyiv. Clarissa, Ukrainians are fighting to repel Russian troops in its major cities. What are you hearing and seeing about the latest efforts?
So there have been quite a lot of activity this morning, a lot of explosions, mostly in the distance. That has gone very quiet in the last 20 minutes or so, and it's unclear if that might be related to the news that you just mentioned, which is a big deal. Essentially, Ukraine agreeing to send a delegation to the Belarusian border near the Pripyat River to meet with a Russian delegation to presumably start negotiations to try to see if there is a way out of this disastrous war. Now, earlier in the day, President Volodymyr Zelensky had agreed in principle to negotiations, but had said that they would not agree to them in Belarus or near the Belarusian border because, needless to say, Belarus is not neutral territory here. This is where a huge amount of Russia's troops are actually pushing in from. Now, the Ukrainians put out a statement on their Facebook page where they said, on President Zelensky's Facebook page, where they said, the politicians have agreed that the Ukrainian delegation will meet with the Russian delegation without preconditions near the Pripyat River. Alexander Lukashenko, that's the leader of Belarus, has taken responsibility for ensuring that all planes, helicopters, and missiles stationed on the Belarusian territory will remain on the ground during the Ukrainian delegation's travel, meeting, and return. So essentially saying there, Dana, that they have extracted a sort of guarantee of security from President Lukashenko that this Ukrainian delegation will be safe when they travel to go and meet with this Russian delegation. Meanwhile, though, the situation on the ground has been a sort of continuous barrage from the Russian side, but they have definitely been finding themselves encountering much stiffer resistance. As you mentioned, that's according to U.S. intelligence sources, but also, frankly, just what we're seeing on the ground. The expectation had been that a city like Kyiv would fall in 1 to 4 days. We're now on day 4. The Ukrainians are saying that they thwarted the advance of a column of Russian tanks in the western part of the city. And while we did hear a lot of explosions last night, one particularly loud one that appeared to target a fuel depot, it is now, at this hour, earlier it was still pretty noisy, but now it does seem to be a bit quieter. And again, that may be because every side is waiting to see what, if anything, transpires from these negotiations, although I should say that as of now, we don't yet have a timing on when they might begin. Dana?
Yeah, Clarissa, we're going to talk a lot more about that announcement about talks, which is, as you